Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we are diving straight into a massive, frankly chilling, forensic document audit. We're tracing the timeline of the CIA's science and consciousness experiments. Now, the sources we're examining today map out this multi-decade narrative, claiming to link early mind control programs, exotic UFO technologies, and our modern digital surveillance state into one evolving architecture of control. It's a dark and complex history, so let's just get right into the documents.
Okay, so let's start with this horrifying question, pulled directly from a declassified 1952 CIA memo for Project Artichoke. Just take a second to process that. They were literally asking if they could scientifically force a human being to violate their own fundamental instinct for self-preservation. According to the audit we're looking at, this specific memo really sets the tone for what the sources describe as a multi-decade war on the human soul.
Section 1. The Genesis of Madness. To understand how we got there, the document suggests looking at the chronological escalation. It's basically a timeline of madness. Through Operation Paperclip, the U.S. intelligence apparatus essentially imported the nightmare data extracted from Nazi concentration camps, specifically the 1942 mescaline experiments at Dachau. And from there, it just spread like wildfire. The Navy and CIA launched Project Chatter in '47, Project Artichoke in '51, and finally, the infamous Project MKUltra in 1953. They took that data and expanded the laboratory to include everyday American citizens.
What's really interesting here is the stark contrast in methodologies. The intelligence state learned from their early massive blunders. Think of the legendary Philadelphia experiment with the USS Eldridge as a macro-level sledgehammer, where massive, untuned electromagnetic fields accidentally shattered the minds of the sailors. Well, the sources claim the government took those temporal dissociation effects and refined them. They wanted that same mind-breaking power, but with surgical precision, the micro-level scalpel of MKUltra.
Section 2. MKUltra and the Synaptic Scalpel. Moving into the 1950s and 60s, they deployed this Synaptic Scalpel, and the scale of it is mathematically staggering. According to financial records discovered back in 1977, there were exactly 150 funded MKUltra subprojects. You might be wondering, how on earth did they hide all of that? Well, the sources detail how the CIA covertly funneled black-budget money through prestigious universities and hospitals using philanthropic shell corporations, like the Human Ecology Fund. A lot of these researchers literally had no idea they were working for the CIA.
The absolutely crucial point here is that these weren't just random, chaotic experiments. They were systematically mapping out human vulnerability. You had Dr. Ewan Cameron leading Subproject 68 up in Montreal, literally trying to erase human memories using massive electroshock. Subproject 3, Operation Midnight Climax, used state-sponsored brothels to secretly dose men with LSD while agents watched from behind two-way mirrors. They even studied kinetic amnesia, calculating the exact physical blow to the head needed to erase memories, and weaponized severe trauma to fracture personalities in Subproject 130. They were attacking the mind from literally every conceivable angle.
And, the clinical language used in these source documents is horrifying on its own. When these intense de-patterning experiments failed, when a subject's mind was irrevocably shattered into a state of permanent dissociation, the CIA couldn't just let them go. The text alleges they utilized a disposal protocol to eliminate these experimental failures, coldly referred to in bureaucratic terms as a benign release. Just wow.
Section 3. Montauk and the Frequency War.
Eventually, the science shifted. They moved away from the clumsy use of chemicals and drugs and stepped into the invisible, terrifying realm of electromagnetism. The forensic audit points to the legendary Montauk project at Camp Hero on Long Island. The claim is that the government used a massive, obsolete SAGE radar broadcasting at specific, tuned frequencies to achieve what they call neurological decoherence. Basically, they realized they could use electromagnetic frequencies to directly attack the human pineal gland, manipulating the physical seat of consciousness without ever even touching the subject.
And it gets even wilder, diving into esoteric, almost bizarre physics. This is based on a real, declassified 1983 Army document titled Analysis and Assessment of Gateway Process. It outlines the use of audio frequencies, specifically the Monroe Institute's hemisync binaural beats, to force the left and right hemispheres of the brain to sync up. The document explicitly discusses pushing the brain into a deep theta state to decouple consciousness from the physical body. They were trying to navigate the universal hologram. They were basically trying to hack the fabric of reality itself.
Section 4. The Phantom UFO Fleet.
Now, while the software of mind control was advancing, the sources claimed the hardware of exotic physics was also evolving, but it was handed off to private entities to bypass public scrutiny. According to the text, the government protects its most advanced aerospace technology using a very specific three-step legal loophole. First, recover exotic technology. Second, instantly transfer the ownership and blueprints to private, corporate aerospace contractors, because private companies are totally exempt from Freedom of Information Act requests. And finally, whenever their own human-built, early-generation fleet, these alien reproduction vehicles, are caught on camera, the Pentagon simply slaps an Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, or UAP sticker on the file. They're effectively laundering their own classified tax dollars in plain sight.
The authors of this audit argue that the ultimate proof isn't some crashed saucer out in the desert. Actually, scratch that. It's way more obvious. It's sitting right in the Public Patent Office. Between 2016 and 2019, Dr. Salvatore Cesar Pais filed public patents on behalf of the U.S. Navy for operational schematics, including a craft using an inertial mass reduction device. The sources argue this is soft disclosure. It's the military essentially hiding the operational physics of a secret space program right there on the public record.
Section 5. The modern digital prison.
So finally, we have to look at the culmination of all this. How did the brute force actions of the past evolve into the invisible technological control grid we see in the modern era? The sources paint a deeply chilling picture of modern geopolitical control. They cite the Jeffrey Epstein network not as some isolated financial anomaly, but as a highly funded intelligence honeypot. The architecture of this blackmail is simple but absolutely devastating. Lure elite political, financial, and scientific assets into highly surveilled environments, record their illicit acts, and use that tape to enforce absolute compliance. It's pure control through mutually assured destruction.
The crucial takeaway the documents are driving at is the evolution of delivery. Slipping a drug into an unsuspecting person's drink in a 1960s brothel, that was messy. It was inefficient. Today, the text claims the control is wireless. It points to patents like U.S. Patent 6506148 for nervous system manipulation via electromagnetic fields, the microwave auditory effect. Physical brain hacking has evolved. Now, it's algorithmic trauma programming delivered directly through our social media feeds.
And to maintain this invisible prison, the sources claim that historic programs like Operation Mockingbird, where the CIA actively infiltrated the news media, never really ended. They argue that mass media and identity politics are actively weaponized as cultural viruses. They deliver a constant stream of fear and division designed specifically to jam our coherence and keep the whole population in a state of perpetual, low-frequency chaos.
Which brings us to our final, deeply unsettling thought. As we look at the history mapped out in this audit, from the torture rooms of the 1950s to the algorithmic echo chambers we look at on our screens every single day, we are left with a terrifying question. Did the MKUltra program ever truly end? Or did the architects of control simply convince us to voluntarily carry the laboratory around in our pockets? It is a lot to process, for sure, but understanding these claims is the very first step to seeing the structures around us. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.